This is not a love story. It's an astrological case study of the abuse of power, manipulation, and the karmic ties that bind us and tear us apart. Today, I'm comparing the charts of Cassie Ventura and her boyfriend of 11 years, Sean P. Diddy Combs. This method is called synastry in astrology, and I wish more people would consult it before entering a serious relationship, especially people like Cassie and even Lacey Peterson, whom I spoke about in a previous video. Then again, there's that inescapable and inevitable thing called karma that draws people together so that they can learn, grow, and hopefully develop as spiritual and sentient beings. In a perfect world, that is. But except for external appearances, the world of Cassie Ventura and P. Diddy was anything but perfect. Cassie Ventura was born August 26, 1986, in New London, Connecticut. And Diddy was born November 4, 1969, in Harlem, New York. Without the exact birth times, I have to exclude the ascendants, midheavens, moon positions, and exact house cusps from this discussion, although I can say that Cassie's moon was likely in Taurus, while Diddy's was somewhere in Virgo, but that's all we know. Even so, without this information, there are still some power packed aspects to consider, especially the nodes of the moon. Here they define the intense karmic patterns that ensnared this couple, creating a relationship dynamic fraught with tension, emotional insecurity, manipulation, and gaslighting, eventually leading to an epic courtroom showdown. The first aspect that I noted was in Cassie's own chart, shown in the inner wheel. She has her Virgo sun squared by Saturn in Sagittarius, which describes issues with authority figures. Think father at an early age. And restrictions and limitations imposed upon her, possibly due to religious beliefs, family attitudes, wealth, or education. The Sun Saturn square can lead to feelings of scarcity, as in not having enough, or on a more personal level, a lack of self worth and feelings of inadequacy. She may have felt judged, as if she just didn't or wouldn't measure up, become someone important, or someone with something to offer. I think the Sun Saturn square is the crux of her attraction to a relationship with P. Diddy, whom she met in 2007 when she was just 21 and he was already 38 years old. Shades of daddy issues here? 17 years is a huge age gap to navigate for someone just entering her 20s. It suggests the desire for a strong guiding figure, a guru type person, someone already well established and rich in life experiences, social connections, and bank accounts. Diddy was already a wealthy superstar by this time, checking all of her boxes. We can also see that Cassie's sun trines Diddy's Saturn in Taurus. He too experienced scarcity as a child. But for her, along came a steady, stable presence to anchor her and give her the structure she needed. He was extremely prosperous, a power broker in the music business with worldwide fandom and success. It would fill all of her emotional voids as well, the lack of confidence, of accomplishment, of social standing. There's a lot to look at in these charts. but I'm focusing on the moon's nodes because they are so instrumental in understanding the tumultuous downfall of this couple. Cassie's Jupiter in Pisces is exactly conjunct Diddy's North Node. The North Node is your soul's North Star. It shows you not where you're from, but where you're headed. It's a guide for spiritual growth, fulfillment, and meaning. When you align with it, life often opens up in unexpected and purposeful ways. In Pisces, it encourages us to release old boundaries and blockages and expand our consciousness toward forgiveness, empathy, and compassion for others. It inspires selflessness as opposed to self aggrandizement. Cassie's Jupiter in Pisces blends right in with Diddy's North Node. She dreamed big, with ambition and aspirations, and her dreams included Diddy. They definitely shared a strong intuitive bond. In a more positive setting, she could have inspired him to take a more enlightened approach to life. But here, the Jupiter North Node connection is corrupted by tough aspects. Cassie's chart features a black moon Lilith Chiron conjunction opposed by Uranus, and her blessed Jupiter and Diddy's North Node forms a harsh T square to this opposition. The student guru relationship promised by Jupiter and the North Node, and by Diddy's Saturn trine Cassie's Sun, instead becomes strained by anxiety, sudden shifts in behaviors and actions, and repetitive unhealthy patterns. Her belief that he was the key to her destiny gradually dissolved into her feeling of not knowing who she was without him. And this allowed him to take all the immoral liberties with her that eventually led to her lawsuit. Harsh aspects bring out the shadow side of planets. While Jupiter in Pisces can be a high vibration, when afflicted, it speaks of delusions, unrealistic expectations, addictions, substance abuse, imprisonment, and a victim mentality. Over idealizing her partner led Cassie to a state of emotional vulnerability, forcing her to confront her old issues of inadequacy while never quite measuring up to Diddy's needs and expectations. With afflicted Jupiter in Pisces, she was prone to losing her own identity, therefore making her even more susceptible to gaslighting and manipulation. The stability that she perceived in Diddy initially was also an illusion, as he then was able to manipulate her much more easily. Her boundaries, so important to a Virgo native, became eroded with time, and she lost her sense of self, which fortunately she was finally able to regain after the relationship ended. Since you've watched the video this far, you may be interested in some of my other work, especially Exploring Forensic Astrology, which was my second book on crime astrology. Here you can read about famous celebrity crime cases and learn the methods I used to interpret the corresponding crime and synastry charts. Links to my other works are also below. Now, back to the video. Diddy's Mercury is in Scorpio, conjoined to Cassie's Pluto. Scorpio is already a pretty intense placement for Mercury, giving him a keenly insightful mind, and mixed with Cassie's Pluto shows a deep and powerful mental connection between them. However, his Mercury is afflicted by opposition to cold Saturn in Taurus. giving him a tendency to be calculating and devious. He has the shrewd ability to strategize situations, both business and personal, where only he can come out the winner. According to my research, the Mercury Saturn opposition is known to appear in the charts of criminals. Not everyone, but just enough to be noted. The combination of Diddy's afflicted Mercury and Cassie's Pluto may have initially created a dominant psychic force between them. But again, we see the shadow side of these planets. Pluto can be manipulative, dominating, controlling, and gaslighting, and this was its effect in Cassie's life. One more important note on the nodes. We've seen Diddy's North Node in Pisces, and now we look at Cassie's North Node in Aries. The North Node in Aries tells us that the person needs to develop their own identity, their own sense of self, separate and apart from any dependency on others. They need to learn to put themselves first. By bringing charges against Diddy, Cassie was showing us that she was learning to care for herself first and right the many wrongs done to her. She was learning the karmic lessons described by her North Node. On the other hand, what the South Node describes are old ingrained patterns of behaviors that we need to be evolving away from. They're like signposts on a highway to growth, but filled with plenty of stops, starts, accidents, detours, and potholes. Cassie's South Node is tightly conjunct her Venus in Libra. Through past patterns, she's very attached to luxury, money, putting self aside to appease others, valuing others above self, dependency on relationships, and always playing the peacemaker. All things that came into play in her relationship with Diddy. In effect, he kept her tied to her karmic past, and in order to grow, she needed to break the negative pattern cycle of the South Node. Add to that the fact that Diddy's Venus is very close to his Jupiter in Libra, also attaching to her South Node. Add to that the fact that Diddy's Venus is very close to his Jupiter in Libra, also attaching to her South Node. He was big on having money, jewelry, the swag and the bling that she craved, and it helped him gain control of her. Their combined Venuses did give them much attraction for each other and a common ground for the values that they both held most dear. His Venus Jupiter combo fell right into the orb of her South Node, keeping her stuck in old patterns of superficiality, materialism, and showiness. And with her Venus conjunct his Venus Jupiter combo, she would be showered with materialistic gestures while craving inwardly what she really needed, a sense of self worth and self sufficiency. Both of their Jupiters drove them to living large. But Jupiter also rules the law, so it makes sense that Cassie turned to the court system to rectify the intolerable emotional situations she had endured while with Diddy. In the end, she did help steer him toward his destiny, as Pisces is also the sign of imprisonment and confinement. What she experienced with him emotionally became what he came to experience physically, being incarcerated for an extended period of time. The shock of his recent court case and devastating fall from grace may still help him right his spiritual ship, although I wouldn't hold my breath. Only time will tell. Here are a few more of my works that you may find interesting. If you care to, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. I am B.D. Salerno. Thank you for watching.